Good afternoon. I'm Terry Cole, President and CEO of the Greater Albuquerque Chamber of Commerce. Welcome to our today's event, which will feature remarks from our Governor, Michelle Lujan Grisham, on New Mexico's ongoing response to the COVID-19 pandemic, including economic relief initiatives and the distribution of vaccines. We are also just 10 days away from the completion of the 2021 legislative session. We look forward to hearing the governor's perspective on the session and what she hopes our legislature will prioritize over the next 10 days in order to help our state recover, grow, and thrive. But first, I'd like to recognize our sponsors for today's event, all of which are engaged, community-minded companies or organizations that want to see our city and state succeed. And they believe that a strong private sector is key to that success. They are P&M Resources and President and CEO, Pat Vincent Calan. New Mexico Mutual and President and CEO, Norm Becker. Bank of Albuquerque, represented by New Mexico Market CEO, Jennifer Thomas, and Senior Vice President, Kyle Beasley. The University of New Mexico and its President, Garnet Stokes, including UNM Health Sciences Center, UNM Health, UNM Comprehensive Cancer Center, and UNM Athletics. Western Sky Community Care and President, Tony Hernandez. Molina Healthcare and Executive VP of Policy and Government Affairs, Carolyn Ingram. Pattern Energy and CEO, Michael Garland. True Health New Mexico and its President and CEO, Mark Epstein. New Mexico Gas Company and President, Ryan Shell. U.S. Bank and its Regional President, Paul DePaula. Molson Corman and its Board Chairman, Del Archuleta. Presbyterian Healthcare Services and its President and CEO, Dale Maxwell. Excellent Schools New Mexico and its Executive Director, Scott Hindman. Sunny 505 and CEO, Joni Griffin. Esparza and its CEO, Del Esparza. Payday HCM and its President, Mike Stanford. And Verizon. Also, U.S. Eagle Federal Credit Union and President and CEO, Marcia Majors. Blue Cross Blue Shield of New Mexico and its President, Janice Torres. Comcast and Vice President, Chris Duncanson. KOB TV4 and General Manager, Michelle Donaldson. And Sandia Laboratory Federal Credit Union and CEO, Robert Chavez. Again, thank you to these great sponsors for their engagement and generosity. We appreciate you. And among more than 300 people we have joining us today are leaders from 3 companies who have recently joined our chamber. These new companies are ABB, a global technology company that connects software to its electrification, robotics, automation, and motion portfolio of projects. ABB has been selected to supply its charging stations, for example, as a part of the largest electric vehicle charging network in the United States. We also want to welcome Environment Control, a locally owned and operated leader in the commercial cleaning industry. In business for more than 50 years, Environment Control has doubled in size in the past few years. Congratulations to owner Danny Christian. And Corey Frazier just opened an Albuquerque location for his global executive and business training company called The Growth Coach. Corey was recently named one of the 10 male coaches transforming lives in 2021 by Yahoo Finance. He's also a military veteran. Corey, thanks for your service, and we look forward to your success in Albuquerque. Late last year, we also welcomed Pattern Energy and Lyft to the chamber. Both great companies. Pattern Energy has just begun construction on the first of 4 New Mexico wind farms and a transmission line. It's our pleasure to represent all of you, and we appreciate your investment in the Chamber's mission to make our city and state a great place to start and grow a business and a safe, exciting place to work and raise a family. Okay, we're ready to hear from the governor. To introduce her, we have our board chairman, Kyle Beasley, with us. Hello, Kyle.
Hey, Terry, and thank you. We are thrilled to have the governor with us this afternoon. Michelle Lujan Grisham is our state's 32nd governor. She comes to the position with an extensive career of public service, one that has included representing New Mexicans at every level of government, local, state, and national. She is a former Bernalillo County Commissioner, a former longtime cabinet secretary of both the Department of Health and the Department of Aging and Long-Term Services, and a former 3-term member of the U.S. Congress. Public service is second nature to her, and she has no shortage of ideas, plans, and energy to improve the state we love. Governor Lujan Grisham is a 12th generation New Mexican who was born in Los Alamos and earned her undergraduate and law degrees from the University of New Mexico. During her time in office, our chamber has worked with the governor on a number of issues, including the funding of economic development incentives, PRC reform, the Energy Transition Act, and development of clean fuels, the creation of a new early childhood education department and early childhood endowment fund, and pandemic relief, including business grants and regulatory relief for struggling businesses. Governor, I imagine that a pandemic was the last challenge you expected to encounter when you ran for this office. We look forward to hearing about the state's ongoing efforts to battle COVID-19, about the distribution of vaccines, and about your focus areas and perspective on this legislative session. Governor, please take it away.
Well, thank you. I'm going to make sure, yep, I'm unmuted. Kyle, it's nice to see you via Zoom. And actually, this is, I believe, my very first joining via the internet by Zoom meeting and event from my office. So I started coming back to the office because things are in fact improving around the state dramatically. And I know we all feel incredibly both gratified by that news, relieved. I want you to keep that optimism, but I also want us to keep being prudent, because that really is the partnership that's going to make the difference over the long haul. And so I'm really grateful to be able to do that. And I'm really gratified to be able to join you. I do really want to start by highlighting that it is very easy, and there are some of us who have seen that occur in our state and around the country and around the globe, that when there is a once in 100 year catastrophic event like this pandemic, which brought both economic calamity and I think really highlighted some critical divides in this country. And not the least of those is a quest for racial justice, created environments that are hard for any business, any person, whether you're an adult or a child, and created strains on systems that a state like New Mexico was just beginning to feel relief from some of those inequities in a state that has so much to offer and such incredible opportunity on the horizon, but also huge gaps that we were closing, and now they've all been ripped open again. For the most part, I have to say that New Mexicans and New Mexico businesses who have really suffered have continued to stand tall, who've worked diligently and bravely, courageously to protect their employees, to work on helping us have what I think are some of the best COVID safe practices in the country. You'll now see national advertising, right, on COVID safe certifications. We had a safe certified program running in New Mexico well before that. And it's because we have real leadership in the business community. And many of you have supported and engaged with our Economic Recovery Council. All of those strategies, I think, have put us not only in the position to adequately recover, and I want to be a bit bullish about this, but also created opportunities for our policymakers to continue to invest in New Mexico's growing and burgeoning economy. And here's the bullish part. I believe that New Mexico is going to lead recovery efforts in the country. I believed before I was even elected that we have so many opportunities to untap that all we have to do is realize them and work together towards those goals. I believe that we could unify the legislature in education and economic relief and goals and investments and infrastructure. And while the pandemic has been really terrible all across the globe, we never lost focus that we have to shore up our economic investment and our economic strategy. So I want to talk about, and you mentioned some of those, Kyle, about where we've been working together all along, and we're working together in this session. And of course, we had two special sessions, both which provided economic relief. And I want to focus on just the last one before the general session. This state, by far, per capita, had more in direct economic relief and payments to both those individuals who were unemployed and the individuals who really needed a lifeline, providing $1,200 to individuals, who are being hit hardest by business closures or business limitations in the state of New Mexico. We also put money into utility assistance and housing and food security and food benefits for families all across the state. And most of you, I'm going to say all of you, have been contributing your own resources and directly volunteering to make sure that those benefits have gotten into every single household we could get to in the state of New Mexico, preparing millions of meals and delivering them statewide. That was incredible work, and we're about to do the best per capita and well on our way before the incredible $1.9 trillion stimulus package fully passed Congress just less than an hour ago today. And I want to talk about, I want to give you that total amount, because it is really incredible when you think about a state that is identified, because it's true that we're still a state that suffers from extreme, deep poverty. We're going to put in $900 million, all aimed at economic strategies to shore up, provide relief, our business community, and the individual New Mexicans. And when you think about the resources that we have or don't have, and you think about bipartisan efforts to make that happen, it is in fact extraordinary. And add to that, that we did not deplete all of our reserves like many states did, or have huge furloughs in education, first responders, public health, and public safety. We have really managed that, and it's because we have effective economic partnerships, and the advice and efforts that you make every single day, in fact, make all the difference. So I just want to quickly run through that $900 million. We've got a gross receipts tax holiday that is intended, right, for food and tourism establishments. We all know hospitality hit the hardest. How does the pandemic move? It moves with people. You put people on airplanes and in cars and in buses and on trains, and you're moving the spread of this virus. They got hit the hardest all across the country. They got hit extremely hard in New Mexico. That's going to provide about $90 million in relief to those businesses, and we think it creates that fair leg up. $200 million in LEDA, all aimed at small businesses, also streamlining, making sure that we've got the right investment strategies and tools, right? And these are grants. You don't pay it back if you meet those hiring goals. And again, it's all about getting people back to work, and it's believing in, and we do, that the ultimate foundation of our economic success is the backbone of our economy, our small businesses, and our business community in general. And I'm very excited about that. $500 million in a retooled effort to make sure that the loans in the severance tax bonds program, that allows for us to really make it available and make it meaningful. And we know that there is trepidation about taking on debt, but we want to make this, frankly, so good that it allows you, with grants and with tax relief, the opportunity to marry all of these programs together so that you have the best effort at a partnership aimed towards your success. Your success, quite frankly, is the state's success. You know, a long time in coming, and it's hard. Upstairs comes a alcohol reform bill that provides for alcohol delivery, but also really looks at a lot of our hospitality businesses and gives them an opening into a market that they've never been able to quite do. And so we don't compete with some of the major urban areas or college towns around the country. Austin, Denver, Scottsdale. This is an opportunity, and I think we're really going to see burgeoning growth. And we tried to create modifications that also protect the folks who, under the old liquor license system, right, created investments and business opportunities. So vilifying one group over another, that never works. It's win-win. We want to create an ecosystem that protects the investments that have been made to the highest degree and allows for additional business growth and recognizes that this is a tourism state. We want to create those ecosystems. We want to make sure that we are robust in our efforts to do that. We're also suspending, right, the renewal license fees so that we create another, I think it's about $3.8 million worth of relief to businesses, you know, where we can create a better regulatory platform. Let's do that. This is a perfect opportunity to really weigh in about other areas where we can make a difference in that regard. And I'm feeling really good about those efforts. And of course, you know, we've got a Buy New Mexico effort. It's a procurement bill that, again, we've been trying to focus on growing our small business investment programs. We did that in a couple of sessions ago, but we really want to make sure that New Mexico local purchasing and businesses are reaping the benefits that we are providing to both consumers, families, and the business community to fully engage in propping everybody up. You know, I believe that, you know, if you, we want all boats with a rising tide to all be raised at once. Feel very strongly about win-win solutions. And I got to tell you that I'm feeling incredibly, I said bullish, optimistic about our future. Now, we've seen what real challenges look like. And I know not a one of us is now Pollyanna about just how quickly things can turn from really people, if you weren't coming to New Mexico, what was I saying? And I'm going to say it again. If you're not here yet, you better get here before it's too late. But we saw business investments during the pandemic. We've seen additional business went to anchor in New Mexico. We've seen growth in film and production, in aerospace, in cybersecurity. We're seeing property values grow, or at the very least being sustained around the state. We saw a recovery in our energy sector, not where it was, but certainly not at a negative, right, price point per barrel. We're beginning to see those sort of economic identifiers that give us the kind of hope for the future. And unlike a whole lot of states, the Mexicans didn't pay out of pocket for testing or for COVID care, right? Our healthcare system, our insurance system, our providers, our managed care entities, our hospitals all banded together. So we aren't creating more debt, more hardship. We created, by virtue of both Medicaid reimbursements and just cohesive strategies, leveraging on each other's abilities and expertise to provide that kind of coverage. And of course, now you're going to see it in the $1.9 trillion federal stimulus package, where they're going to engage in additional ACA subsidies because most states weren't able to manage that effort. And that's going to mean more New Mexicans are going to have access to the private market. You know, we've got a bill that's going to do more of that, the Patient Affordability Fund. And so in all, with our infrastructure investments, with a priority for broadband, about 400 million coming directly from the feds already here for broadband and connectivity efforts in schools directly, in compensation and safety protocols and practices, in new ventilation and new buildings, which I think can lend itself readily to indoor entertainment and dining. I think that we're going to create an environment in New Mexico that other states are going to look to. Unlike the 2008 recession, where we were really slow, and in fact, the slowest by many standards to come out of the recession and begin to have any recovery. There is no reason to believe that New Mexico isn't going to leap to the top, given the markers and the investments for a diversified economy we've already made, that we're getting our kids back to school, that we're going to connect the entire state, that we have $1 billion still being spent on infrastructure, that we have the Energy Transition Act, which is really the platform. Create transitions from one economic focus to another, create an all of the above environment for success. Success breeds success. Success breeds optimism. Optimism breeds opportunity. Opportunity means equality. And I'm really proud of us all. And the last thing I'm going to say, frankly, goes without saying, it's been a long year. You know, we're on the anniversary of the first identified cases in New Mexico. Both fortunately and unfortunately, I knew that was coming. I began doing, as you've read, tabletop exercises in January. I also know that this group knows that given that we didn't recover from 2008 very readily, we had an austerity environment in state government. I inherited government entities with 40% vacancies, a public health department that hadn't had an IT upgrade for epidemiology or public health in well over a decade, a Medicaid system without those very same upgrades. And yet, we've led the nation in testing. We've led the nation in coverage. Per capita, we have been a leader in therapeutics. We are leading the country in vaccines. I think it's notable that we are doing that without the federal government direct assistance for personnel. So this little state, without enough of anything, struggling to make sure that our healthcare, which, you know, our resources are scarce, could be everywhere. We're leading the country. And we're doing that because everybody stood up and is lending a hand. And I'm really proud of that work. I'm still devastated by our losses, all of them. And I firmly believe that you can have good public health and a strong economy, that those are not mutually exclusive. And that we can, and we are, because of you, moving beyond that debate that you have to pick. New Mexicans deserve both, and your leadership and our leadership, our partnership is creating just the vehicle to do it all. So thank you for inviting me today. Now next year, I am counting on this legislative event to be in person. And I'm going to stay an extra hour just so I can say hello to everyone. And thank you for your leadership, your efforts, and your dedication to a state we all believe in and we all love. Thanks very much. And I know that I'm going to get some questions, and I'm really happy about that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Governor. And yes, we do have some questions for you. The first comes from Mike Canfield. He's former board chair for the Chamber and CEO for the Indian Pueblo Cultural Center.
Thank you, Kyle. Good afternoon, Governor, and thank you for all that optimism and all the work you've done. It is nice to be at the top of the list on some of those things, so thank you for all your efforts. You did mention earlier, Governor, the importance of hospitality and tourism to our state, so I know you get it. I guess I'd like to question and talk a little bit deeper about what you think it might take to reignite tourism in New Mexico, what kind of timeline we're looking at, and maybe specifically what holds our future in our future for large events, conventions, and so forth. I know that you know that tourism and hospitality impacts a lot of our workforce and families, and it's important that we get them back to work. So what do you think it's going to take to get us back on the road to recovery, both in the rural, local, the business, the communities throughout the state? What are your thoughts there, Governor?
Well, a couple of things. I mean, one, I believe this group knows that we asked for 70 million, right, in tourism. We wanted to really have a robust, not just marketing, but investment in helping and bringing large events, small events, and just really making clear tourism is an important part of our economic sector, and it's critical to our overall recovery. It also holds the most risk, which is why it's been so hard. The game changer here, quite frankly, is vaccines, right? With vaccines, we know unequivocally that you get to that magic that too many people on the globe don't quite understand, herd immunity. You create an environment where we have the best protections against death, hospitalization, and the data still coming in, but we fully expect, at least the public health experts that are talking to me, that you're going to see a reduction in transmission related to being vaccinated. You know, again, this is a new virus, and there are lots of mutating strains, variants. So, you know, we're going to know when we know. And that's what's been really challenging when people want to date certain. Unfortunately, all of that data keeps emerging. And so we don't quite know. But when we did the red to green, and then we added turquoise, you know, we were showing and identifying that we're seeing a 20% a positive impact in the reduction of transmission and therefore the number of cases related to vaccines. And I want to give you a couple of statistics that should make every New Mexican feel very good about where we are. And again, I won't know until I know, but I'm feeling really good about it. And that we'll get to, I don't know what we'll call it. Turquoise platinum, I don't know what it is, but it's very clear that large events, small events can occur. Tourism is back. It really is. When we were first vaccinating Americans, the uptake in the first priority category, which is set by CDC, were healthcare workers. And the national average was just under 60%. Unfortunately, New Mexico's uptake in the healthcare world was lower than the national average. And so early in that 1A phase, we were about at 54, really concerning. I think we got all the way up to 58 by really pushing folks to get vaccinated, but still not good enough. The general public, and this is a model that Presbyterian, and I think that Dale Maxwell is participating today. It's unfair for me. There are so many rock stars that are part of the Albuquerque Chamber, but I got to give the CEO a shout out. I mean, they're doing a mountain of work and we push them every day. They're part of everything that we do successfully. And they did a model that shows that in terms of their vaccination uptake in their partnership, it's close to 80%. New Mexicans want that vaccine. And when you look at the number of people registering, right, and the ability I can do with my partners, 50,000 vaccines a day. And based on the amount we get now, we're doing 6,000 to 8,000 a day. Just to put that in perspective, we could vaccinate every New Mexican in a month if they would just give us the vaccine. And again, it doesn't exist for this population. But if 80% of New Mexicans are going to stay this trend and get vaccinated, and then you add the number of people who have immunity because they've gotten the virus, then we can safely open our doors, right? Because we're safe. And the big debate about New Mexico, and it's hard, every state was different. We had more to risk than any other state. And I'm going to be unfair to Mike Canfield. Look no further in terms of tourism than the respect we owe and the gratitude we have for our sovereign nations. Their mortality rates, I think when it's all said and done, are going to be 6 times higher than anyone else's. 6 times higher. In some states, whole cultures are lost. Not here. We had plenty of loss, way too much. But if we hadn't taken those strict standards, we wouldn't be talking about the kind of tourism that we know makes a huge difference in this state. And the last thing about tourism. So I know you want to, summer is feeling pretty darn good, early summer. But look, it's spring break, and I want to do a little public health plug. I'm a little nervous about all the spring breaks in Oklahoma and Colorado and Texas and Arizona and Nevada. And so I can tell you exactly which schools and communities, and we got a lot of skiers right now in Taos, and I love it. They're not as good at wearing masks as we are. It's tough. And in fact, I think Taos is showing that their rate of transmission is increasing. So there are some risks. We're not saying no to those, we opened up a little red to green in tourism. People want to come here. They're here, right? Yeah, and these are a demographic that can be hard, right? College kids are coming here, and we don't have an entertainment environment, right? No bars. And where are they? Outdoors, New Mexico. So I think we're going to do really well. My plug for you all is keep reminding everyone, the better we do on the public health COVID safe practices, the earlier we can safely invite everyone every day back to New Mexico. And if you haven't registered for a vaccine in this group, get registered. All right. It is an amazing system. And we want to get you in the queue for a vaccine as soon as it's available to you. And that was a great question, Mike Canfield. And I'm sorry I went so long. I'm excited about tourism.
Well, thank you, Governor. We're opening up in April, so come down and have some red chili. We'd be happy to have you.
All right. Well, I'm not going to get to go to any restaurant. I've been invited by many until I get a vaccine, and I'm likely to be in 1C. And so I just have to take a little greater care. I have my own family to think about. I have to model the best COVID safe practices, and I would never forgive myself if I gave it to someone. So probably if I can get a vaccine in April, I'll see you for good red chili. Don't blow it, Mike. Better be delicious. And if not, I might have to wait and see you end of May.
Okay. Well, we look forward to it, Governor. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, our second question, Governor, comes from the Chamber's incoming board chair and the current president and CEO for New Mexico Mutual, Norm Becker.
Yeah, thank you, Kyle, and hello, Governor. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon.
Hey, Norm, nice to see you. You don't age, which I find really problematic, and I'd just like to put that out there for the group. I'm not very happy about that.
Well, I was born with gray hair, so I'm kind of lucky in that respect. Thank you for saying that.
I'm catching up.
I'm sure you're aware that businesses across the state are concerned about some of the proposals that are moving through the legislature right now that would create new or higher costs, everything from higher taxes to higher unemployment insurance rates and new mandatory sick leave requirements. And as you probably know, but for the record, as a chamber, we support a uniform statewide sick leave policy. We just need to be reasonable, responsible in its approach and accommodating small business in particular. So what's your perspective, Governor, on the way forward on these kinds of business issues?
I want to applaud the legislature, right? There is huge appetite you want that excitement to create, right, investments for working families and to have better sick and paid leave policies, to create that environment where we feel like we're doing more to lift our most at-risk workers up. And I'm proud of their efforts. There is a lot to be said for when and how you do that. And I want to talk about a couple things first. Everyone knows, because we've had to, that we have taken loans for unemployment benefits because the unemployment fund is basically empty. And we're not the only state, but we are a state that always, in this context, ends up in a high unemployment environment. And so tough area. Plus, we added employment benefits, as you remember, in the special session before the general. It is not clear that the language in the federal stimulus package is enough to be really clear today that I have everything I need to pay those benefits and to replenish the fund and to pay that debt off. Because the intention must be not to pass that to employers. It is an artificial, in this context, cost of doing business because they couldn't do business because it wasn't unsafe. In fact, what they did is they made safety a priority for their employees. All right, and then to make that burden is a problem for me. So governors all across the country, including me, are working with the Department of Treasury to make sure that the guidance about that $1.9 trillion benefit, which to New Mexico is about 1.6 billion to the state, that a large chunk of that will be aimed at protecting employers and making sure that those issues do not get passed down. As a stopgap, you'll notice that we're also putting a bunch of money back into reserves, right? That's not what we want to do, but I want to make sure that I also have a plan B, C, D, E, F, that again, passing these costs on through no fault of the employer is not how we want to get this addressed. So I want to make sure that I'm really clear about that. And I appreciate the support by the chamber to do just that. You might have noticed that we even, amended the liquor reform bill for no excise tax. We just don't need fees and taxes in an environment where we're trying to sort of regain where we were. And when you've asked businesses, not just to tighten their belts, but to literally close their doors or to limit how they open, then you have to be flexible about your next steps, including the focus needs to be on economic relief directly to these businesses. So let's get to the family leave or the paid sick leave. I put all those policies into place, right? I did the minimum wage immediately, and I didn't do it graduated in state government. I did all those leave policies immediately in an employee setting where I have control over how we do that spending and how we develop those policies. And I'd like to tell you that they were simple and that they didn't create, some struggles inside existing budgets. It was really hard. So I know how hard that is. I hope that where we end up, and thank you for your support, that I'm going to get a bill upstairs that is really clear about delayed implementations, that is clear about studying and a task force, that is clear about unintended consequences, and allows us to come back together and create the best policies for business in the country. Doing that prematurely is going to create, in my opinion, or not even the policies, not premature, the way in which we mandate and get it executed. If we don't do that right, two groups get hurt. The employees that would have had a job that will not, and the business that I want to have those employees come back to work and grow. So I think that the position the chamber has taken has been very effective and productive. And that's what we really want. We want sort of research, evidence-based, thoughtful approaches to address these problems. And we're getting that from the Albuquerque Chamber. And I really commend your leadership for weighing in. That's what I expect to get up here. And I'm feeling better about some of those other tax proposals, getting a good debate about where we need to go, including in, road or gas tax. But I don't believe that they'll move out of committee in a bipartisan friendly environment where we need some more time to think about where we are economically, how balanced and fair we are. And let's make sure that we're clear about a 10-year tax policy that really works for business and New Mexico families. And I think that's what you should expect when the session ends, that's what's going to be upstairs or not upstairs as a result.
Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate your pragmatic approach to those business issues, Governor.
Yeah, they're hard issues. And I know it's hard on you all too. And I'm being very candid. And this has been a very good partnership. And I think it's the envy of a whole lot of states. We don't always agree on every single priority or issue, but it's that productive, pragmatic effort at those disagreements that puts us in a position for sustainable investments that really make a difference over the long haul. And I commend you for that. And I'm also grateful for that effort because it makes my job easier. And in the end, we're building a better New Mexico.
Okay, our third question comes from Chamber Board Member Carolyn Ingram of Molina Healthcare.
Thank you, Kyle. Thank you, Governor. Thank you so much for all your hard work. It means a lot to us. Governor, our chamber has been a big supporter of the ETA, and we're supporting the efforts this session to clean our transportation fuels. But we're also really concerned about attempts to curb the oil production in New Mexico. Our Albuquerque schools, for example, are the biggest beneficiaries of revenue from oil and gas production. And our country, we think, and the world is going to need oil and gas for a very long time. And we believe as much as possible that should be produced right here in New Mexico. And I know you're very well aware of these issues, being native New Mexican and dealing with this all the time. But can you give us your take on all of the above and an energy approach might look like, and speak to us a little bit about the Biden administration's halt on energy production decisions and the temporary federal leasing ban?
To the degree that I can. I mean, it's clear with the Energy Transition Act that this is an above all energy state, and that we are clear that the evidence indicates, right, the science, you got to have a transition, not just for energy reliability, and capacity, but also in terms of, how jobs move in that transition. So you have to have a long-term plan and investment strategy that does that. And New Mexico is one of those states that has the benefit of all of those things. And we can, again, that doesn't have to be mutually exclusive. There isn't anyone really in the state of New Mexico anymore that will tell you that fossil fuels are not a problem for climate change, and that our greenhouse gas emissions are problematic here. But if we work together, we can have jobs and innovation in that regard, and we're transitioning to renewable energy, and we're creating energy reliability. All of those things are occurring right here. So I'm going to defend the Biden administration, who's really working to, I think, counter some of what they believe, and I would agree, some reckless decisions in the last administration related to mining and a bunch of other extractables in areas without doing, frankly, the required federal work to make sure that you've got an environmental plan, that you've got a clean up and a disaster plan in place, and that you're working with the community, right? I mean, we put these standards in place so that every business has to meet those, and that you're working with the community in that regard. And I am sure that there might have been, some oil and gas leases, not in New Mexico, but in some places around the country. I might highlight a state, Alaska, where again, some of that rush to just say yes without any of that work, the Biden administration is trying to say that's not how we do things, right? It's unfair, it's imbalanced, and it certainly isn't addressing climate change. I believe the Biden administration intends for this to be an all of the above and a transition to renewable energy. Now, with all that said, I'm clearly concerned that right out of the gate, with very little guidance, we have an announcement to stall, right, a moratorium on lease applications. And the reality is a lot of oil and gas, right, in the Permian is on private land in Texas. So wherever you are in the country or on the chamber, however you feel about that, you can simply just move, and that just hurts New Mexico. And there are no environmental standards there. We've got partners who are really helping us curb emissions. We have the strongest methane rules right now in the country, and one of the most robust investments and transitions into renewable energy in the country. I mean, we're doing all the things that they aspire to do at the federal level, including the clean fuel standards, which you all are supporting. So here's what we've done. We initiated both conversations and a pretty strongly worded letter that this doesn't make any sense. And the last issue is it's an economic problem for the state, but rather it's also a message to states to not do anything and wait for you to do it. And you're not going to get as far as fast. If you're looking for innovation and environmental policy, you're going to stall that. So I'm leading efforts with the Western governors. I'm leading efforts with some governors from the National Governors Association. My team had a long conversation with stakeholders from the Department of Interior, and your entire delegation is on Team New Mexico. And the basic strategy here is this. Since you've already made the announcement, backtracking on that may create some policy issues. So create a program that gives credit to states that are well beyond where the federal government and other states are in terms of climate change initiatives, cleaning up the environment, curbing carbon emissions, and having an all of the above energy effort. You do that, New Mexico's going to get an exemption, a waiver. Tribal nations are exempt from this guidance on public land. So I feel as optimistic as I can that we win this. I just don't know what the win exactly is going to look like, but it is a particular focus of mine currently to adequately protect the good work in New Mexico currently. And so I appreciate all the work of the chamber, and I'm going to need you as a full-on partner here, no doubt.
Thank you. Thanks for your insight. Appreciate it.
Yep.
Yes, and winning that issue is very important to the state. We all firmly understand that. Governor, one final question comes from Peter Lorenz. He's CEO of UNIRAC, and he is the Chamber's chair for our Education Reform Committee. Peter, we can't hear you.
Easiest question I've had all day.
It's showing. Oh, we still can't hear you, Peter. I know. Yeah, we can't hear you. I know what Peter's question is, Governor. I'll go ahead and ask on his behalf.
Okay.
Most of us in the business community have looked at all the available science and just simply believe our kids need to be back in school. And that's, of course, in conjunction with the announcement on Monday. We're worried that we've fallen behind and we need the kids to catch up so that they can graduate and lead great productive lives. What's the state's plan for finding out just how much learning loss has occurred among individual students and subgroups of students? And do you support extending the school year for the next several years to make up for lost time? And what else can we do to get kids back in school here in Albuquerque?
So, yeah, one thing I'll challenge you about, Kyle, in that question, or Peter, is, and I just had a call with the national leaders of the two largest public education unions. And I think there's some disagreement around the country. I just want to provide it. That learning loss may not be the best way to sort of capture what has definitely been. We know that not every student had access to education in a distance learning environment in the same way. That at-home risks were definitely exacerbated by not having kids in the classroom. That things that we know add to learning and acuity opportunities, right? All of the STEAM, which includes arts, music, and sports, that all of these add significant evidence-based value into learning, and those were missing in distance learning. So I got challenged today about how I asked, because I might have asked that same question and I got barked at. So I'm going to just give it right back to all of the New Mexicans. So we're on track with the greatest and latest at the national level. There is some work occurring right now to do a very specific assessment, to your point, that would really capture where are we, where aren't we, and what are the best strategies to resolve all of the tensions and gaps I just listed. And I didn't list them all. There are many more. And I'm interested in how quickly folks are going to start to do that evidence-based work. I would absolutely launch a universal assessment tool, age and grade appropriate, see where we are and create kind of a post-pandemic or a current pandemic baseline. I think that that's valuable. You do that, you do employee evaluations, having an evaluation, knowing where we are and knowing what our goals are in terms of closing the gaps. Well, if we don't know how big that gap is or isn't, then you're just sort of guessing. So I really appreciate that. I think it's a very valid point. You'll hear me couch it in that, not as much as learning loss, but really making sure we know the full impact of distance learning and the fact that we didn't have the tools inside the classroom that we rely on, that we know make a difference. So we're going to do that. And two, I'm very favorable. You know, before the pandemic, we got 110 million to do extended learning for K through 5, you know, adding 10 to 25 days of classroom time for our kiddos who we know if you don't get what you need in that K through 5 environment, those kids don't succeed in mid school and high school. They just don't. So this is, let's get it done where we need to get it done. There's a whole lot of work going on in the legislature right now, looking at extending the school years. How long do you do that? Are there incentives? What are the mandates? And I'm confident that we're going to get something. And even if we don't, the federal government is making really clear with the education investments in that stimulus package that they want us to utilize those funds to make sure that we are doing summer school investments and retreats and team investments and new regional schooling strategies. There's a whole laundry list of things that they're expecting states to adopt as long as they're, you know, relevant and culturally appropriate to your state. And I have every intention of drawing on every productive strategy and idea and getting it implemented. And I don't think it's going to be a one-off. I think that we're going to find parents and students want to be in the classroom and want those opportunities into the summer moving forward. And so I'm thinking that New Mexico ends where it should. More time in the classroom, more effort, more support to students and their families. And I think that's going to pay off. And thank you. Get everyone back to school. And some of the social distancing is going to be a bit challenging, but I want to reassure the chamber, I don't think I need to. And I know that there's a lot of emotion tied to this. No child, no parent, no educator should be afraid to go back to school. That's a terrible thing. But with the number of vaccines, and you know, we had already vaccinated nearly 50,000 educators. And about, I'm going to get this wrong, so forgive me, something just under 10% of 16-year-olds to 18-year-olds in the state have been vaccinated. And, you know, we can do a better job there for sure. We're hoping there's going to be a vaccine for kids under 16 that parents can choose for their families and their kiddos, which also will make a difference. But the evidence over the year has shown that the transmission risks are low if you distance, you wear a mask, you wash your hands, you have hand sanitizer, you're very careful, you've got a protocol about meals, and you've got a testing strategy, which is why it's easier to do sports when a school is in, because the surveillance, screening, and testing strategies and the sanitation for like the locker room, the basketball court, all of that happens in the context of the school. So I am very grateful that we're going back to school no later than April 5th. I feel confident that our mitigation factors will win the day. And I hope that people are confident that we've done a year's worth of work to make sure that schools are safe. And it's the vaccines that make all the difference from going from hybrid to everyone back in the classroom. And again, one last thing, parents who don't want their kids to go can still access the classroom through distance learning. We're not going to forsake them, but the vast majority of students and their parents and educators want to be in the classroom, and we have figured out a way through vaccines to make that happen. So it's happening.
Okay, thank you, Governor. That's our final question. And I'll just say it's not lost on us that in the midst of a pandemic, in the final couple of weeks of the legislative session, you've chosen to spend some time with us today and talk to the business community. So very much appreciated. Thank you for your service to our state, and we wish you and your staff the very best as you do the hard work of leading our state. Terry, to wrap up our event, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Kyle. Governor, I'll echo Kyle's comments. Thanks for being with us. We appreciate it so very much. It's been an important moment for us to speak with you, and there's a lot on the line in New Mexico right now, and we're appreciative that we were able to hear from you and that you were able to hear a little bit from us today. Before we sign off, I want to thank all our business leaders, investors, and partners for joining today's event. And again, thank you very much for all the sponsorships. And I forgot to mention Tracy Hartzler, president of CNM. How could I forget Tracy? Sorry about that. As one of our sponsors, we have a wonderful partnership with you, Tracy. So thank you very much. We hope everyone will join us for upcoming virtual events through the spring and summer. Please be on the lookout as they are announced. During the remainder of the session, be sure to read our nightly Legislative Roundup e-newsletter, which provides the business community with the most comprehensive recap of each day's legislative activity. You can sign up to receive the Roundup by simply emailing Sarah on our staff. And we encourage everyone to review the Chamber's annual plan of action, which you can find on the website. It covers, among other things, the programs we run, like Leadership Albuquerque and Albuquerque Reads, and our work in 3 key priority areas: public safety, education reform, and downtown transformation. Thank you for being a part of this important event today. From all of us at the Chamber, we hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you next time.